Hello, everyone. It's Whitney Wiley, and thank you for joining me for Love Your Work, where we talk to guests who love the work that they're doing, talk about their journey, and share some valuable insights that could help you too love the work that you're doing. Today, I have with me Brian Brogen, and Brian is someone that I met through an acquaintance who Brian has a podcast called Build Your Success, and he talks to people about building businesses and success and leadership. And I had the opportunity to be on his show. And Brian, thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us about work that you love. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. I am so excited. Yes, we did have a great conversation with you on our podcast. So I'm looking forward for you turning the tables on me today.
I hope we will have fun. I plan to. It has, uh, it's been interesting over the course of the last couple of months, of course. Lots of people losing their jobs or doing their work in ways that they hadn't done before. And so I think it's really important to help people keep in mind that while the situation may be uncomfortable for many and beyond uncomfortable, that we still have the opportunity to love the work that we're doing. And if we're not doing something, to reach out and find people that can help them do that. So um, just let's start with what it is you're doing right now. So you are the VP of Field Operations. What exactly does that mean, and what does the VP of Field Operations do in a construction company?
Well, it all depends on the size of the construction company. And so we're a medium construction company. We do industrial construction. Um,
Okay.
and I'm responsible for the estimating department here at Southeastern, and then the operations for the field operations, which that's the team that goes out into the field and works in power plants and mines and does heavy industrial construction, welding, rigging, a lot of heavy construction activities, a lot of skilled tradesmen and women that work with us. And so I'm responsible for all the crews that are out in the fields and making sure they're happy and healthy and our jobs are doing well. So that's my role.
We talked about this on your show, that I think is one of the most important jobs, one that a lot of people don't do well, is leading their teams. But as someone who cares about leadership and management of people, I have no doubt that you do it really well. Tell us what it is that you love about your work, and in particular as it relates to leading people.
Well, the construction industry as a whole is a very rewarding industry. I tell people I was looking for a job and I found a very rewarding career. I have had the opportunity to be on the NASA Space Complex, Cape Canaveral, on a launch pad
Wow.
working. Uh, I've done a lot of work locally at the theme parks at Disney World, and then I've done a lot of power plant work, traveling across the southeastern United States, getting to meet a lot of people. But the thing that I like best about it is I'm results oriented. I like to see things that we've been a part of building, and so there's a lot of things that we've worked on that people might recognize. If at Disney World, our company fabricated the big swans that you see on top of the hotel.
Oh,
So those
wow.
are actually big steel structures, steel tubular frames that were welded here in Mulberry and then shipped up to Orlando area and assembled, and then a cement stucco was put over the top of them. But the frame that actually is the skeleton of the swan we built. So that's one thing people might recognize. Also, the Polytech School here, which is a very architectural, won a lot of awards for its architecture. We did all the aluminum framework installation on the outside of the building that gives it its character. And so it's really neat to drive by. Now, if you listen to my mom, she'll tell you I built those things. And I have to tell her I didn't do any of that by myself. And there were many other contractors involved, but it is very rewarding to be a part of a thing that people see and enjoy and go into.
Don't you just have to love moms?
Yes, yes.
So I would imagine it would be rewarding. I know as a study of organizations and human behavior in organizations, one of the really important things, sometimes even more important than money, is the feeling that your work matters and that you get to actually see the end result of your work on top of working with the people who are doing that and leading them has to make that doubly rewarding.
Absolutely. And the great thing about it is I hated school. I barely graduated high school. And then today I'm leading a great group of people. But I get to see not only buildings develop and buildings come together, but I get to see teams come together. And I get to see young people learn a trade, learn a skill, and do the same thing I did. They come in looking for a job and they stay here for decades. And so it's just really rewarding to see someone progress through their career, learn new things, and go from a craftsman to a supervisor to a manager. And if they're as fortunate as I am, they'll be an executive one day. And that's what I like to try to help people do.
That's cool. So when people start working for you, can it come, you have entry level jobs? Is it something that they need to have learned a trade before they actually come to work for you? Or is it something that you can actually really teach on the job?
So both actually happen. We have a lot of employees that come to us that they've been other places and learned their skills, but we also take people from the ground up. I have 20-year-old twin boys and they decided to follow dad in his footsteps, and they're out there learning to weld and learning to rig and just enjoying the same. And one of them just became a certified welder. And when I go into the high schools, I'm also a mentor in the high school, which was what led to some of my leadership training. I tell the parents, when I was in school, they threatened me with digging ditches. And today I tell the parents, please threaten your students with digging ditches because it pays $20 to $25 an hour. It's called an operator, and they operate. We don't do a whole lot of digging ditches with shovels anymore, but it's a very skilled craftsman, and there's not everyone's destined for college.
Right.
So this is an opportunity that you can learn in an environment. And I say you can earn while you learn, as opposed to going to college and establishing all this student debt and then maybe having a degree that doesn't have great pay opportunity.
Right.
So everybody has their own way of doing things. This is just one way can be successful for people like me that enjoy hands-on constructive activities.
I agree with you. And I think we might have talked about this a little bit on your program, is that college isn't for everyone. That isn't to say that one can't continue to learn. And like you said, there's all different kinds of learning on the job. And, and that may spark, something inside of someone to learn things beyond that. But it's important that people figure out what it is that excites them. And if working with your hands, working with your mind, working, outdoors are things that work for people, they should be exploring those. So I think it's a good thing that you are working and mentoring. I really love to hear that you're mentoring the people that come to you.
Yes, ma'am. And part of my motivation for that was I started this off with I hated high school. And I asked my algebra teacher one time, I said, why do we need to know this to buy a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk? And when I rolled out my first set of drawings and had to do perimeters and had to do area square footages and had to learn the volume of something, I went, oh boy, this is that stuff I should have learned. And so I got to learn it all over again, right?
Right.
But one thing that I've discovered, some of our teachers have been educated. They came through the school system, stayed in the school system, and became educators. They don't know how to answer a smart aleck student like Brian that says that and say, well, Brian, you're not going to be buying milk and bread the rest of your life. Hopefully that's not your career path, is to be a purchaser of milk and bread. So definitely once I realized, man, how important this stuff is, I went back into the classroom and said, applied math, applied writing. And I try to use real world examples. In the classroom, I've told them about the acoustical tiles that are in the ceiling. They're 2 foot by 4 foot standardly. Some of them are 2 foot by 2 foot. But I told the students, I was like, this many feet this way and this many feet this way equals so many square feet. And then you got to figure out how many tiles you need to order to build this building. And one of the students said, well, why don't you just count them? And I said, that's a great question, but they're not here to count when we build and we make the order. You have to actually figure it up and have waste percentages. So there's a lot of construction math, man, writing bid letters, training people that you have to write. I really wish I'd have paid attention better there. This past year actually wrote a book. And so it was like some of that English stuff, man, I wish I'd have paid attention. So those are all the things that you realize when you start to understand how important education really is. And I think as industry professionals, if we can go in and partner with these educators, then we can tell the students about the real world application.
I think that's a really good point. I also think that it's helpful. You mentioned that the teachers, they go into education and they're there. And if they've never done anything else, they don't really stop to think about the applications part of what they're teaching. And having real world examples, I think, helps to connect the dots for people. And it's not learning something in the abstract. You use the example of math. So here's a funny thing. So I studied mathematics in school, right? And so math came easy. I got it. And people would say, why would I ever need algebra or calculus or anything? And the interesting thing is that there was a time when we actually did need it in everyday life, but computers have made it easy. Grocery stores have made it easy. And if anyone out there is a comparison shopper, just for example, when you're comparing, 10 ounces of peaches in this can as opposed to 15 ounces of peaches in the other can, and you're comparing the prices of the cans, the only way to actually compare whether one is a better buy than the other is to get in the per ounce, right? That per ounce comparison. But now those are all labeled in the store. So you can just walk up and look in at the tag at the store. It'll say these are 23.3 ounces, 23.3 cents per ounce. And this is 17.8 cents per ounce. And so you can make an easy comparison. But there was actually a time, and someone as advanced in age as I am remember the time when you actually had to do it yourself. So, but you're absolutely right. It is about being able to connect the dots for people with the application of whatever it is you're learning, whether it's writing, math, science, whatever it is, to the real world in jobs and careers that people would use those things in. So you mentioned school, and not a fan originally. When you were in school, high school or just out of high school, what was the first job you had?
Well, the very first job I had out of high school was I was a bagman and a stock person at Public Supermarkets, which is pretty popular here in the Southeast, founded right here in Lakeland where I'm from. So it's a very popular place to work and your first job. I did that for about 3 months, the summer really, out of high school. And that's when I found the job I'm at today at Southeastern Construction, been here 26 years.
Wow, so, that's awesome.
Yep.
So just really, well, you've had a number of jobs in your organization, but really the job with Publix and then now the same, just the two companies.
Correct. Yep.
You've worked your way up. So what has been your career path, and how did you know that you wanted to stay where you are and just move up the career ladder?
Well, this is a family business. My wife, I'm an outlaw, so she's the her uncle owns the business, and they've treated me well the whole time. They're really concerned about not only our family but the employees' families. We have about 200 employees, and we try to take care of most of them. I just got through with employee evaluations, and a lot of the feedback on the positive side was, "You treat us like family."
Oh,
And so that's been, one of the great things that because we are a family, we treat our employees like a family. We get it. We get that you need to leave to take your daughter to something. You have to take off because somebody's sick, family member's sick. A lot of times someone comes and asks me about something like that. And I say, what are you still doing here? Because that's just my mom is like, please go take care of that situation. We'll take care of your job.
that's awesome. So what was the first job that you had there?
I was a shipping clerk, so we have some fabricated steel that leaves our fabrication shop, and I kept all the delivery tickets in line for what was going on a trailer, made sure all the pieces were accounted for, and got to the job site. That was the first job.
Cool. So what were some of the lessons that you've learned throughout your career journey?
How long do you have? I'm pretty hard headed, so I've had to learn a lot of lessons. The fact of the matter being, I used to tell people I was hard hat exempt because my head's so hard, but the job sites won't believe me on that. But no, I've had a ton of lessons. One that I like to talk about, actually, two I'll use. My wife's uncle that I work for told me one time. He said, Brian, he said, you've got a lot of aggression. We've got to harness that aggression so we can use it appropriately. And it was I'm a 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid. I needed to hear that. And it governed me somewhat. And I've used that so many times since he taught me that lesson. And then one of my clients one time we were at a job site, and he grabbed me by the shoulder, and on job sites, everybody's got nicknames. My nickname on that job site was Hound because I'd found a lot of steel they said they couldn't find. So they called me the Hound Dog. But this gentleman grabbed me by the shoulder and he says, Hound, come here and look at this. He said, have you been up there and looked at the work that your crew performed? I said, no, sir, I haven't yet. I said, I'll go look at it. He said, well, that work is your signature. You're responsible for this. And man, when he told me that set home, and I have told that to many supervisors, many leaders since then. You're the last person to look at the work, and it's your signature. And so that's been very important to me. And I tell a lot of welders that your weld is your signature. It's very important what the work you're doing and the impression, like you and I that do leadership, the impression you leave on people's lives is your signature.
That's you told me that during our discussion on your program, and you're absolutely right. We leave an impression, and if we are not proud of the impression that we're leaving, we need to own that and do something about it. And when you combine that, I think, with the mentoring work that you do, right? Because everyone that you hire, that you have an opportunity to touch, you have an opportunity to leave an impression with them that is a signature of them having been a part of your team or someone that you've interacted with. So
Correct.
That's good stuff. So if someone were to come to you, and since you have this happen frequently, I'm imagining you've got a pretty quick answer for this. Someone were to come to you and say, Brian, I want to get involved in construction. I like the work that you're doing, whether it's buildings or, features at theme parks. What is a piece of advice that you would give someone new wanting to start in your industry?
I'd say it's hard work. I mean, we got to recognize that especially here in Florida, you're going to be out in the sun a lot. And so it's, 90-degree days, it's sweaty. When you get out there and get acclimated to it, you start at 7 o'clock in the morning and go till 5:30 at night sometimes. some jobs we work are what we call 12-hour shifts, where something's down and you got to stay with it for 12 hours to get them back up and running. So it's going to be long, hard days. But again, that reward is when you're done, you've either brought a plant back online that they need to be operational for Empower as as an example. The getting the lights back on is very important to their customers. And if you're a part of the team that helps do that, that's very rewarding. But again, back to the math and science, math is one of the only absolutes in life. I've been learning not to talk in absolutes, but math is perfect. I mean, and it's an international thing that just works. So the math that's involved in construction, a lot of these craftsmen are very smart in math and don't even realize it. They've learned it through application,
right?
And they've got tricks of the trade that they're doing math and they don't even realize that they're doing it. But there are so many, keeping something square, keeping something level, all has to do with math. And so I definitely, if you're young, pay more attention than Brian did to that math and understand it better, because you're going to use it if you're in construction.
That's cool. So I've got one last question for you, and you're someone who's made a transition, starting in your entry level position to moving into leadership in your organization. How did you go about making that transition, and what advice would you give someone that was maybe sort of midway in their career and had designs on moving into leadership?
Well, the first thing I'd say, remember me talking about being hard-headed, don't do that. Don't start off that way. That's not going to work. So don't learn that lesson the hard way. Definitely learn that when you have the more team members you have, the more ideas you have, and the more opportunities for creation you have. And none of us are all going to agree on everything. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But let's get a team together and let's get a consensus on what's the best path forward. And I learned from someone that, although you may not agree with it, accept what the team has decided to do and work as a team. Even if it wasn't your idea or you changed your idea, then once the team decides this is the path forward, we've all got to get on board and go the same direction, because being a salmon on a team is not working very well for you.
True. So Brian, would you, if we had listeners and viewers that were interested in moving into construction or a trade career, would you be amenable to having a conversation, just kind of helping guide them or tell them some resources that they could look at to help them move forward in their careers?
Absolutely. A lot of programs out there to help young people understand this career path, and I can guide them in that direction. One thing that I'll plug here is the Build USA, Go Build was one thing that they do, is called Go Build. There's a lot like Go Build Alabama, Go Build Georgia. That's a great program that promotes the industry. And then the NCCER, which is a National Construction Career Education, and I can't remember the rest of the words, but the NCCER is a great resource for this type of stuff. So, and I'll help anybody. I mean, I've had several people reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I've given them every answer I could give them and point them in the right direction.
Awesome. We'll put your contact information in the comments in the post. And if anyone is interested, or you've got a young person who's interested in a career in construction and the trade, one of the trades related to construction, why don't you reach out to Brian and see if he can direct you and point you in the direction of a resource that would be helpful for you. So Brian, thank you very much for taking the time again to come and talk with us. And I hope things in Florida are going well. And you are safe.
Whitney. Thank you, Whitney. I enjoyed speaking with you. I'm sure we're going to talk again and collaborate on something else. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. It's been great. Everyone, thank you for dropping in and watching Love Your Work. And if I can do anything to be of service to help you in moving in the direction of work you love, please let me know. Take care. Bye.